Hello, grade 10 math students. We're going to continue our discussion on factoring trinomials today. So yesterday we were looking for two numbers that multiply to that last term, that term that doesn't have an x in it, and two numbers that added to the middle number. And once we found those, we put them in brackets, and then we said that that is how it's factored. So from now on, when you factor a trinomial, you're going to choose two numbers that add, add to equal the middle number and multiply to equal the last number. We're going to do the last two examples today, and you're going to do some more practice because this really is something that's going to take a couple of days for you really to feel comfortable with. The first example is x squared minus 5x minus 6. So we're looking for two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 6 here. And to find those, we're going to list all of the numbers that multiply to 6 on the side here. So I have 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Now that number that we are multiplying for, the goal here is to get two numbers that multiply to negative 6. And negative 6, so you need to remember that in order to get a negative number, the signs need to be opposite. So here I can have negative 1 times positive 6, or I can have positive 1 times negative 6. I can have negative 2 times positive 3, or 2 times negative 3. So one of them has to be negative in order to get negative 6. So now let's add them together and see which one gives us negative 5. Negative 1 plus 6 gives me positive 5. 1 plus negative 6 gives me negative 5. This negative 2 plus 3 is going to give me negative 1. And 2 plus negative 3, positive 1 and negative 1. So my winner here is these two numbers. And again, that's because these are the two things that multiply to negative 6, add to negative 5. So once I have those, now I'm going to write my two brackets. I'm going to put my number, so a plus 1 and a negative 6, and x's in front. Okay? And this is what we were talking about yesterday. So then what happens here if I have a number in front of my x term? So do you guys see how now there's a 2 in front of this x squared term? And this is the first time that we're really seeing that. So what we need to do is we're going to have to common factor. So remember a couple of days ago when we were first talking about factoring, and we talked about our greatest common factor, our GCFs. Okay, so the first step here is to common factor whatever number is in front of that x term, as long as you don't get decimals. And remember, common factoring just means divide. So here, if I have a 2 in front of my x squared term, I'm going to divide everything by that 2. Okay, so and to do that, I need to write the 2 out front. 2 divided by 2, that leaves me with x squared. 2 divided by 2, that's going to leave me with an x. And 12 divided by 2, that leaves me with a negative 6. Okay, so I've just put that 2 out front, and I've simplified everything inside of the bracket. We're going to leave that 2 out front, and now we're going to do exactly what we were doing before. We're going to find two numbers that multiply to negative 6, add to 1 here. There's that invisible 1 here, right? In fact, I'm going to write that in just so that you can see that. So I'm going to start by writing out all of the factors of negative 6. I have 1 times 6, and I'm going to have to negative 1 times 6. I have 1 times negative 6, I have negative 2 times 3, and 2 times negative 3, okay? And we're going to add these together until I find something that adds to 1. So negative 1 plus 6, that gives me 5. 1 plus negative 6 gives me negative 5. Negative 2 plus 3, that gives me 1. And 2 plus negative 3 gives me negative 1. So this is the winner right here. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to make both of my brackets, and I'm going to put my factors inside of them. So I have my plus 1, I have my negative 2 and my plus 3. and then an x in each. Okay? And this is how we do that with that common factoring. So you're going to take a couple of example problems. I want you to go through the practice problems and let's see where you're at. Make sure that you send me the reflections and let me know how everything's doing. Miss you all.